Hello, tonight we feature the man who's probably the most important of all the pop artists, Roy Lichtenstein. Along with Andy Warhol and one or two others, he changed the art world in about 1961, when he started producing paintings whose subject matter looked like straightforward enlargements of cartoons and advertisements. His style was to mimic mechanical methods of reproduction, with its hard outlines, dots and flat areas of colour, making his huge paintings instantly recognizable. Over the last 25 years, he's moved away from pop art, experimenting with classicism and abstraction, borrowing from many different artists and styles. He's now come full circle, returning to his own comic book subjects of the 60s. It makes this a good moment to examine the life of this very private man, who's now regarded as the most important, innovative and durable of all the pop artists. His paintings sell for vast amounts. His early work has fetched the second and third highest prices for a living artist ever recorded at auction. And Chris Hunt's South Bankshire film begins at Christie's in May this year.
The Lichtenstein 036. And I have $3 million to start this. $3 million for it. At $3 million, $3,200,000 now. At $3,200,000, $3,500,000 here now. $4,200,000, $4,500,000 now. $4,800,000, $5 million, $5,200,000, $5,500,000. Selling in the centre then, all done. At $5,500,000. Bids this side, not yours here, at $5,500,000.
The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money. That's what I want. That's what I want.
I think it's about innovation and with the money, and I don't think it's just money just doesn't have anything to do with it. Trading in art in that way just gets...
His current paintings, all sizes go up to $700,000, $800,000 to $2 million, paintings that he just painted the day before.
I don't know, you want people to buy your work and love it or something, and then not use it as a commodity. But I think that anything that can be used as a commodity will be, at this moment anyway, just seems to be inevitable.
As it was one of Lichtenstein's first to turn commodities into art, there's a certain irony here. He was born in New York in 1923 and had a happy and uneventful middle-class childhood. He was sent to a private secondary school where art was not included on the curriculum and began as a teenager to paint and draw on his own at home. He went on to study art at Ohio State University, where his professor taught him how to look and organize what he saw into art. The war came and he found himself drafted into the army and sent to England, France, Belgium and Germany. After the war, he returned to Ohio, graduated and was hired as an instructor. He began to have exhibitions in Cleveland and then New York, and through the 50s painted in a cubist-inspired expressed style. This was the time when American art was dominated by the abstract expressionist painters like Jackson Pollock, Frank Stella and Willem de Kooning, whose work seemed to have no relevance to the day-to-day world at all. This was just beginning to be challenged by New York painters like Robert Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns, who swung to the other extreme by painting defiantly realistic and bell images, pre-pop art. It was this environment that Lichtenstein went back to New York in 1955 to work as assistant professor of art.
I got a job in Oswego, New York, part of the New York State School college system, and taught there for 3 years, and was asked to come down to Rutgers with me. It's in New Jersey, but it's very near, and it brought me into the New York area. Alan Capro was teaching at Rutgers, and he was the happening person, as you know, and he knew Klaus Oldenburg and Jim Dine and various other people, and I got to know them and got to a little acquaintance with what was going on in New York and in the scene of happenings. And yes.
Let's just talk about the Rauschenberg one. Let's be specific about one. Just to give us an example. So what was wonderful about the Rauschenberg?
Well, one that I went to that Rauschenberg did was he had it was a kind of dance-like thing, and he had, and it was this particular one, it was very dark, and he had, you would see these flashlights on the floor, and they were kind of moving a little bit all over. There were maybe 50 of them, something like that. And you couldn't quite make out what was happening. And you found out that they were strapped to turtles on the shelf.
New York artists were beginning to experiment freely in architecture, art, and most radically in Alan Capro's happenings, anarchic events intended to jolt the audience into a different kind of awareness. America was experiencing a new confidence, entering the boom years of the ad mass culture.
Well, the time, the era seemed propitious too. We lived in a consumer society, and those people probably told themselves, why go on painting abstract paintings? That people got tired of that after abstract expressionism, or then go back to figuration in a conventional way, paint landscape, paint figures. Why not see what's around us? And what you see, what they saw around themselves is products. Products, and also, in the case of Liechtenstein especially, they saw popular imagery.
What Liechtenstein saw at first were in fact characters from cartoons: Felix the Cat, Donald Duck, and Mickey Mouse.
I was using a bubblegum wrapper, a bazooka bubblegum wrapper, to give myself an idea of what Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck looked like as I was doing rather expressionist paintings at the time. And the time I was working from a bubblegum wrapper that looked like this, and it occurred to me to do it straight without the artistic pretension or the sort of beautiful brushstroke and texture, and try to develop a more modern or mechanical way of working. And this is the first pop art painting I did in 1961. I did it as a kind of idea, you know, let's just try this. And I put it up in my studio, and I couldn't do any other kind of painting. I wasn't thinking of continuing to do this when I did it. But everything I did just looked like mush or something. It's just that this thing kept, you know, looking at me. Alan Capro was very interested in that, and told me, you know, really, you know, it doesn't have to look like art to be art. Don't worry about it not being art, because if that's part of you, it will be there, you know, things like that. So I took it through Castelli. I thought the Castelli or Green Gallery would be the only galleries that would even look at this. And they liked it very immediately. But I left my work there, and when I came back about 3 weeks later, they had some of Warhol's and some of Rosenquist's, and then they were very interested because they could see this, that this might be a movement or something. Well, why are all these people who don't know each other doing similar kinds of things?
After seeing Liechtenstein, a few days later, I went to Warhol's studio, and I saw paintings there that seemed to me to be very similar in spirit to those of Roy's. What I saw there were some comic strip paintings such as Dick Tracy, and then large cork bottle paintings. One cork bottle, not multiple images at that time.
In fact, after seeing Liechtenstein's cartoon figures, Warhol gave up his own cartoons, but continued by making soup cans, Coke bottles, and other products into modern icons. James Rosenquist created glossy images out of advertisements and the news that were sometimes bizarre and threatening. With these three painters, American pop art had arrived.
Television!
So white and chocolatey, too.
Television!
It was a New York phenomenon, but Liechtenstein was the only native New Yorker, and even he felt out of tune with the city whose brashness they mimicked.
I probably haven't lived in